It might seem complicated, but it's actually more structured than complicated. Let's see how to create this animation with Daz 3D, Blender, and of course Style 3D. To create the 3D character, I start with the Genesis 9 base, which is the default avatar in Daz 3D. I'm applying a masculine morphology to this base. To shape the appearance, I use two components that I purchased. I take the height from Michael 9 and the build from Flynn. Then I make a few adjustments to the physique to make it slimmer and more muscular, giving it a more athletic look. For the skin, I choose the matte one available in Genesis 9. I pick a pair of shoes for him to wear and select a suitable material to complete it. Once these initial elements are arranged, I proceed with the export using a native plugin in Daz 3D called Daz to Blender. It's a bridge that needs to be installed in both Daz and Blender and allows for export. In Blender, the first step is really simple. I use the Daz to Blender bridge to import the figure just created in Daz 3D. Since not all components imported from Daz 3D are needed in this case, I select the useful meshes and export them in a separate collection to then delete everything else. At this point, I save the Blender file and make the first export in FBX format, useful for creating the animation. Now let's move on to Mixamo, a powerful browser app that I love. As a Marvel fan, I admit I played a bit with Deadpool. But getting serious, I load the FBX just exported from Blender. Then I specify the key points of the character's body: chin, wrists, elbows, knees, and crotch. Once this is done, Mixamo automatically creates a skeleton or rig to animate the avatar. I search for the animation I'm interested in and select the In Place option so that the avatar stays in the same spot. I increase the number of frames in the animation and separate the arms from the body to prevent them from touching, facilitating the subsequent clothing simulation. I adjust the overdrive to give the movement a bit more character, and finally download a new FBX containing the animation. Let's go back to Blender for a second pass that is very important. I load the animation I created in Mixamo. I check that the end of the animation perfectly matches the beginning to create a continuous loop. In my case, 83 frames created in Mixamo must correspond to 83 frames set in Blender. This way I make sure the loop is perfect. At this point, I hide the avatar with the textures that I will need later. I make an initial export in Alembic format, a file that contains the animation information which I will use later in Style 3D. Now I place the animation at frame 0 and export the avatar's position at that precise moment in OBJ format. In the armature section, I click on Rest Position to get an avatar in the original pose and download a third file in OBJ format with the so-called T-pose, which is essential for dressing the avatar in Style 3D. I know you're thinking that this isn't a classic T-pose, which actually would be this, but it's not even an A-pose. But this middle ground between the T-pose and the A-pose is very useful when working and is what you find most frequently among the avatars in Daz 3D. Now we arrive at my absolute favorite moment, working in Style 3D. I open the T-pose avatar and import the clothing, which was also previously prepared in the T-pose. The dress will almost certainly not fit the new avatar perfectly, but we will be very close to the optimal simulation. So I will run the simulation again on this avatar and fix the small flaws. I adjust the outfit to ensure that the animation simulation is flawless. At this point, I load the avatar of frame 0 as a pose, not as an avatar. I will find it in the avatar properties. Now I have the outfit set at frame 0. I delete the OBJ avatar and load the avatar in Alembic format. I select the avatar, then go to Edit Avatar to read the animation information contained in the Alembic file. I go to the animation editor and check that the animation is correct. I exaggerate with the simulation frame setting at 30 and then record the outfit animation. So I check the animation. I check that the UV maps are positioned correctly so I can export them in Blender, and I export the Alembic file, obviously just the outfit, because the animated avatar is already in Blender.
We have reached the final step in Blender. I'm opening the Alembic file created in Style 3D that contains the outfit animation.
I set the scale to 0.001. A very important step. At this point, I see that the outfit and avatar match perfectly in Blender. Assigning the materials is very simple. I use nodes in Blender, go to the shader editor, select the object and the material window, and press Shift-Ctrl-T to import the UV maps that I verified in Style 3D. These maps correspond to all parts of the outfit. Just select the mesh of the part concerned and assign the correct map. I can check it via the icon view. These are really very simple steps. Instead, for the avatar, I remap the textures of the avatar that I had hidden in the Blender file. Since the material names match, I assign them to the animated avatar in Alembic. For the skin, I use an add-on called Global Skin that allows me to make human skin more realistic. I can also use surface scattering to achieve that slight transparency effect typical of skin. And if I want to go all out, I can add a subdivision surface modifier in Blender to give more definition to the meshes. I apply the materials to the entire avatar, and at this point, I just need to create a scene. I use a very simple lighting setup, a key light and a backlight to give depth, three-dimensionality, and shadows to what I illuminate. But of course, everyone can choose their own lights. Then I use a simple box 5 meters large with infinite edges and a dark matte color to create an endless background effect. I add a camera and an empty element to control the camera using this element.
And now we just have to look at the result. With this sequence, you can unleash your creativity and create many other animations. I'll see you in the next video.